this episode, I'm interviewing my own firstborn daughter, Reagan McGuire Keenan. That's right, I have a daughter who's married. Can you believe it? Well, she's going to tell us all how it is growing up as a biological family in a foster care home and what she did after she got married and her new journey in life. So thanks, and here's our new episode. Welcome back. My name is Tammy McGuire, and today we're interviewing my firstborn daughter, Reagan McGuire Keenan. So thanks so much for coming and giving a part of your world to us and how it kind of was growing up as a biological family, introducing children into foster.
So I'm 22 years old. I was married a year ago, almost 2 years, and I recently, I guess 5 months ago, found out I'm pregnant.
Yay! I'm gonna be a grandmother. The neat thing is her name is
Amelia.
Amelia. Isn't that beautiful, everybody? I'm so excited. Our whole family is excited. Reagan is the second child out of 4. So 2 from my belly, I call it. Those are my 2 birth children. And then we have 2 from our heart. So we have 2 sets. We have you and your brother, Ben, who are 26, 22. And then we have Riley, who's 12, almost 13. And then we have Jake, who is 11, almost 12. But the neat thing about it is we started off when Reagan was around 6 years old. And that was a long time having kids come in and out of our home for 13 years. And we had 61. We wanted to share with you today what it feels like to be a biological child in a home that has decided to foster. People forget about those kids who haven't really had a choice or a vote in it, in the journey and the ministry of foster care, but however, they are a part of that journey. And so, do you remember, Reagan, looking back when we first became foster family, what it felt like when you were little and about the 2 little boys who came into our home?
Yeah, it was a little bit different having kids in our home out of nowhere. It was very last minute. They showed up to our doorstep. It was Devin and Bradley, I think, were our first ones. It was really interesting being a young age and seeing all these kids go in and out of your home. But it was also something that was really cool because you were able to connect with the kids and get a relationship and a bond.
Well, but you were so young. Mm-hmm. What do you remember that connected you think? Because you didn't know any better. You didn't grow it, the babies didn't grow in my belly, and it was just, like you said, not organic, as they say in our world, but it was a show up. And then what does it feel like to be the baby of the family, and now you're having to share your family and your home and your grandmother and your brother and your father with these kids?
As at least from what I remember, it wasn't that big of a deal. We kind of just adapted immediately, I think. I could be wrong. But from what I remember, it was a pretty easy transition and something that we enjoyed having.
Well, that's really good and helpful. And I think that what we've decided as a family was we talked about it a lot. We talked about how their feelings were and what their feelings meant. It didn't decide yes or no if Dad and I were going to keep going or not, but it did make a difference and impact. I think we need to keep that voice very positive and ongoing. Is there any children that through the years, the 13 years, that really made an impact on you as a child, as a teenager, and then now looking back as an adult?
There's been several, I would have to say. There was a sibling group of 2 little boys, and they had 1 sister. And we really wanted to, I wanted to adopt them myself if I could, but I was like, 7 or 8 at the time. They just were really, really amazing kids. They fit right in with no problems. Obviously, every child has good and bad parts, and just like I have good and bad parts, but they just really embraced our family, and we embraced them very well, and we got along, and they felt like they were my brothers.
They got reunified, that was the goal, correct? As a child, you don't understand that, but now you understand why, because Reagan has been through pride training. We'll explain what that is later. But back then, she prayed when she said, I want them to come back, and I want to adopt them. Do you remember that?
I more remember how badly I wanted it and how much I would talk to you about it and how much I would really want it.
It was a very pivotal moment in my life as a foster family, as a foster mother, but more importantly as a biological mother. So Reagan prayed for, I think it was 15 to 18 months for the children to come back into our home, and they did. And when they did, the judge did not believe the allegation. And I just want to share with you, if you're a biological parent witnessing this and listening to this, first and foremost, we love you. We're praying for you. We want the best for you and your family. And what we are is caregivers for your children. However, when it gets to a point when your biological child prays for those children, you as a parent jump on and say, how do I best help her navigate through the foster care system? And I remember Reagan go, but I prayed for God to bring them back to us. But did he answer her prayer? The children went home to their family. Judge Gooden came to visit the foster closet when we were in Atlantic Beach. And when he came in, he was so excited to see the new space, but I had a different question for him, all about you. And what that was, Judge, how do I tell my daughter who prayed for 18 months or so for these children to come back to her home, how do I tell her that God didn't give her that answer? And he said something that will go on and live in my heart forever for my children and for all of you out there. That some judges don't listen to the true judge and send the children back home. And maybe it was God's plan. Maybe it was God's plan for us to go through that journey. Because if we adopted those boys, it would have been beautiful for us at that moment, but we wouldn't have been able to help all of those other children after, and more importantly, adopt our last two. So God's plan is perfect. God's plan is pure. It's just sometimes hard to go through it, especially when you have little children who pray and yearn for that moment of having those kids back in your home. Our family truly does live the life and the journey and the bumps in the roads just like yours does. Without mentioning any names, of course, could you tell us a moment that this journey and our family's journey might not be yours?
I don't necessarily think that I've ever had a moment where it wasn't for me. I mean, obviously there's been bad moments that have happened with other children being pressured for adoption within the system that just didn't benefit their mental health, their emotional health. But at the end of the day, that's something that I feel like us as foster parents or us as biological parents should do to protect the kids and try and create that bond with them, to let them know at the end of the day that we're here for them and we're here to benefit their life rather than have any hurt to them. Well, there was this individual who I was very close with. Her and I ended up being pretty much like sisters, and I know that we both wanted the adoption as well. But you know, sometimes people need a little bit of time, and I felt like the system was just pressuring her, pressuring our family. It ended up pushing her to her breaking point. It wasn't her fault. I will have to just go ahead and say that now.
I agree.
And that was the hardest moment I think we went through as a family, and just to see how it all unfolded afterwards was just very disappointing.
Right. But that night we realized that we can't save them all. We realized that our core family was so important to our self-care, but more importantly that sometimes God puts children in our life that we can't save and we can't make a difference at that time. We think she's doing really, really well. I just wanted to share, though, that was our point in the road. If you remember the episode with Jessica Bradstreet, when I said that was my pivotal moment where a lot of our families get a fork in the road. Do I keep going with our journey, or do we stop fostering altogether? And that's where prayer and bringing your core family back together to say, is that what God's purpose is, to look after the children in foster care? Should we keep going? So here's another key element, how you can help families that are looking after, help them. Making sure that they have time together as a core family. So letting those families maybe have a break and taking those the children that they have in their home that are there for just a short time, maybe having a bit of a respite, is so good for not just the parents, but also the biological children or adoptive children who are still in the home. To when we got your brother and sister. And by the way, I just want to make a really key note that behind the camera right now is our 12, almost 13-year-old daughter, Riley. And we're super proud. She is our camera person, and she's doing a really good job. But so she gets to hear how her sister talks about her. And I just want to stop and say this, that Reagan wasn't a part of the adoption agreement. However, we did ask, and we did make sure that Reagan and Ben both were on board. You remember the moment when your little brother and sister came into our home because you were a senior, almost graduating from high school, and headed off to college. Do you remember those moments that you had with your little siblings?
Yeah, I do. They were a trip. You know, they came in from a horrible situation, but I feel like they grew up a lot quickly.
There was a lot of discord in our home, and Reagan and Ben, our oldest son, felt like that I was the targeted one, and they would jump in to help me, but really it was just he was broken and scared. I think that now that you know that now, but in the time, that was really hard and difficult for our biological children to watch our family and our home be quote-unquote abused by a little 5-6-year-old little boy. But in hindsight, because we stuck it out with him and we all showed him that what true love was forever, and what forever meant was we love you regardless. Has brought her to this moment. So thank you for sharing, and we hope that you can look at how you can help look after the foster children by what Reagan has learned from her past and the purpose that God has put inside her.